بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وبارك على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد الحمد لله وجزاكم الله خيرا. Alhamdulillah, in our previous lesson, we came to the end of the Asl al-Awwal, yani the first foundation, and then moved on to al-Asl al-Thani, the second, which is the foundation of the Deen of Islam. We began by mentioning the pillars of Islam. The pillars of Islam, the Shahādah, la ilaha illallāh, Muḥammad Rasulullah, Iqāmat al-Salah, yani establishing the prayer, Ita'i Zakah, giving the Zakah, Sawm al-Ramadan, and the Hajj to Baytullah al-Haram. And so Shaykh al-Islam, Muḥammad ibn Abdul Wahhāb, after mentioning these pillars, he goes on to mention some of the adillah for these pillars. So he mentions for dalil al-Shahādah, the proof for the Shahādah, is قوله تعالى شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو والملائكة وأولو العلم قائما بالقسط لا إله إلا هو العزيز الحكيم. And so he begins by mentioning Shaykh al-Islam, the dalil for the Shahādah. He mentions that Allah Ta'ala bears witness along with the angels and those that possess knowledge that are upright in relation to it, that they bear witness that there's no deity worthy of worship besides Him, the Almighty and the most knowledgeable, or the Almighty and the most wise, rather. And this ayah here is an indication of the greatest form of Shahādah, the witness that is borne by way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the Shahādah upon Tawheed. The Shahādah of La ilaha illallah. And the Shahādah, as I mentioned, Shahid Allahu annahu la ilaha illahu. So Allah Ta'ala bears witness that there is no deity worthy of worship besides Him. And as we mentioned, that this Shahādah negates anything else in the absolute sense, anything else worship besides Him. As we mentioned, this word, this kalima la, or the harf la, is what is referred to as la al-nafiya lil-jins. It's absolute negation. Na'am, la al-nafiya lil-jins. And then in the next sentence, illahu, besides Him, which is affirmation that the ibadah is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, with no partners. Meaning, yani illallah, besides Allah. This is affirming that the ibadah is for Allah Ta'ala alone without any partners. Now, and so, this is the Shahādah, that no one is worthy of worship besides Allah, and the malaika, the angels, are in accordance with their wazifa, what they are tasked with, and upon their absolute obedience, then they bear witness to this too. It's mentioned within this ayah. And so Shaykh Zayd goes on to mention, فَهُوَ الَّذِي يَجِبْ أَنْ يُعْبَدْ وَحْدَهُ وَيُطَاعَ وَحْدَهُ. And so He alone is the one that needs to be worshipped. He is alone when it comes to the worship. And He alone should be obeyed. When referring here now to the obedience in the ta'ah, then of course ta'ah can occur in many different ways. You can have the ta'ah to Allah, as we mentioned here, or ta'at al-Rasul, in obedience to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or ta'at al-Amir al-Amr, Wali al-Amr, in ta'at in obedience to the ruler, ta'at to walidain, in obedience to the parents. However, this affair of ta'at, when it comes to the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's specifically for Him. without any partners. There's no ta'at al-makhluq over and above the ta'at al-khaliq. There's no obedience to the creation when it comes to, or when it contradicts to the obedience to the khaliq. And when it comes to the obedience of the creator himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, as mentioned, the obedience of the malaika is one which is absolute. And so, Allah Ta'ala informs us that they are those that are upon this affair of bearing witness that there's no deity worthy of worship besides Him. And Shaykh Zayd goes to mention, فَلَا سَبِيلَ لَهُمْ إِلَى مَعْصِيَةٍ أَبَدًا وَجَعَلَهُمْ عَلَى أَعْمَالٍ لَا يَكُونُ بِهَا سِوَى. And so, there's no means for them to be upon this affair of ma'asiyah in any way, shape or form. In terms of the malaika, as a khalq, as a creation, then they do not have that within them or within their own selves the ability to disobey Allah. Unlike the ins wal jinn. Mankind and the jinn may disobey Allah and upon ikhtiyar. Now it goes back to what they choose to do. Do they choose to be obedient? Do they choose to be disobedient? As for the malaika, then they are upon absolute obedience. As Allah Ta'ala informs us, لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. And they do not disobey Allah in what He commands them with. And they do that which they've been commanded with. So Allah Ta'ala commands them with an affair, then they adhere to it. They adhere to it due to the fact that they are, as individuals, that do not disbelieve and do not disobey. And Allah Ta'ala also mentioned in relation to the malaika, وَيُسَبِّحُونَ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ لَا يَفْتَرُونَ. And so Allah Ta'ala mentioned in relation to the malaika, they glorify Allah Ta'ala in the night and the day. And they do not become bored of this, or fatigued of this, or fall short in this. Allah Ta'ala has praised them in that regard. And this, no doubt, is the reality of His malaika. So when Allah Ta'ala mentions these malaika, they are the ones that bear witness that He, subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the only one worthy of worship in truth, then we understand that this is an action that they perform which is upon pure obedience. And of course, no doubt, anything that they do is only going to be in accordance with the haqq. Only in accordance with the haqq, because this is how they've been created. And so, this is the reality of the malaika. Likewise, those that I mentioned within the ayah as well are those who are ulul ilm, those that possess knowledge. Those that possess knowledge, likewise, bear witness that there's no deity worthy of worship in truth besides Allah. As we mentioned previously in relation to those that possess knowledge and in relation to knowledge itself, when we were discussing the tulab al-ilm, the people of knowledge, the students of knowledge, or the ulama, that this knowledge cannot really be regarded as being ilm, knowledge and deen, except that it's acted upon. So it cannot be true knowledge until the person acts upon it. For the ilm that has been referred to here, no doubt, is ilm al-shari. The knowledge that has been referred to here is knowledge of the sharia, knowledge of legislation. Ilm al-shari, knowledge of the legislation, is beneficial knowledge once it is acted upon. If a person merely gathers information, however, action upon that knowledge is devoid. Action upon that knowledge is something which is missing. Then it cannot be said that the person truly possesses that knowledge. And so thus, when Allah Ta'ala refers to ulul ilm, those that possess the knowledge within this ayah, When he's referring to those individuals, the ones that possess the knowledge, then no doubt he's referring to the ones that possess it and act upon it. For indeed, those that act upon it will be well aware that there's no deity worthy of worship and truth besides Allah. And they bear witness to that. And this is in relation to the tulab al-ilm, yani in general, as well as the ulama and the learned individuals. Those that possess this affair and this noble affair with them of knowledge in of itself. And Allah Ta'ala has mentioned the Shahādah, by the bearing of witness of himself, along with the Malaika, and we know the nobility of the Malaika, along with these individuals that possess this knowledge. All of them are individuals of nobility, the Malaika, those that possess knowledge. And so, when they bear witness to an affair, understand that they're bearing witness to an affair because it's the haqq. As mentioned previously about the Malaika, they bear witness to an affair, then we know it's the haqq because they only do that which they're commanded with doing. If Allah Ta'ala commands them an affair, they do it. If Allah Ta'ala commands them with an affair, then you know that it's in accordance with the truth. And those that possess the knowledge, those that are grounded in knowledge, are those that have possessed that true knowledge, due to the fact that they act upon it, due to the fact that they have benefited from that ilm in the deen. And so thus, this is an indication of the Shahādah and its status, and Allah Ta'ala knows best. And this is the ulul ilm. And those ulul ilm are ahlul ilm al-shar'i, the people that possess knowledge of the Sharia. And this Shahādah, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has borne witness to himself, as well as the noble Malaika, as well as those that possess knowledge of the book and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Thereafter, Shaykh al-Islām Muḥammad Abdul Hakeem goes to mention the meaning of the Shahādah. And he mentions that the Shahādah, its meaning is لَا مَعْبُودَ بِحَقٍّ illallāh. That there's nothing worthy of worship in truth besides Allah. يعني نافيا جميع ما يعبد من دون الله يعني إلا الله. مثبتا العبادة وحده لا شريك له في عبادته كما أنه ليس له شريك في ملكه. And so, here within this Shahādah, Allah Ta'ala, as we mentioned, negates everything that is worship besides Him. Negates it all. Whilst affirming that the ibadah is for Him alone. Na'am. Just as He does not have any partners when it comes to dominion and ownership. That He's the Rabbul Alameen. Allah Ta'ala is the Lord of all of creation. And He does not have any partners when it comes to the ownership of the creation and the ownership of the dominion. And so the meaning of the Shahādah, لَا مَعْبُودَ بِحَقٍّ illallāh, then as we mentioned, it has these two pillars. The pillar of negation and the pillar of affirmation. And the Shaykh goes on to mention, Shaykh Zayd goes on to mention, نعم لا يستطيع أحد أن يدعي بأنه شريك لله في الخلق. And so no one is able to claim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has any partners when it comes to creating, or في الرزق, or في الإحياء, or في الإماتة. No one is able to claim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has any partners when it comes to giving sustenance, or when it comes to bringing about life, or when it comes to bringing about death. Those that may claim so, they know that this claim is a claim upon batil. It's a za'am, غير صحيح. Shaykh Ahmad al-Najmi mentioned in relation to this word za'am. And this is a claim upon batil. So the one that says that I'm able to bring about life, will cause death, just as Allah does, then this is a claim on batil. This is an example of who? Nimrud. Nimrud. What did he mention? قَالَ أَنَا أُحْيِي وَأُمِيتُ. He said, I can bring about life and cause death. I can bring about life and cause death. What he meant by way of that, or by way of his statement, was a claim that the affair of life, the life of the individuals or his subjects, and the death of his subjects was solely down to his word. So if, for example, the one that was deserving to live, he would say the kalima and they could die. If the individual was deserving to die, he could say the kalima and they would live. And they would not be executed. However, this claim, no doubt, negates the reality that anything to do with their life, their living, or their death, their dying, ultimately comes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, anyone that makes that claim is one which is batil. For indeed, Ibrāhīm mentioned in response, that Allah Ta'ala is the one that brings or causes the sun from the mashriq, from the east. And so he mentions, فَأْتِ بِهَا مِنَ الْمَغْرِبِ. So cause the sun to rise from the west. If you claim this rububiyyah, if you claim that in reality you have the sole ability of life and death, then allow the sun to come up from the west. Of course, he's not able to do so. And so this, what Shaykh Zayd here is mentioning, is that once we affirm and once we understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is alone, He has no partners when it comes to His dominion, His ownership of everything in creation. Allah has no partners when it comes to the affair of provisions. He has no partners when it comes to bringing about life or causing death. He has no partners in these things. And so, if He has no partners in these things, then of course, by ilzam, by necessity, He has no partners when it comes to ibadah. He has no partners when it comes to worship. If we know that Allah Ta'ala, He's the one that's created us. Allah Ta'ala, He alone allows us to be sustain life within this dunya. He alone is responsible for our living. He alone will be responsible for when we die. There's no doubt the affair of gratitude and ibadah, it has to be for Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, alone. And so, as is mentioned, Allah Ta'ala mentions, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ ضُرِبَ مَثَلٌ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ لَن يَخْلُقُوا ذُبَابًا وَلَوْ اجْتَمَعُوا لَهُ إِن يَسْلُبْهُمُ الذُّبَابَ شَيْئًا لَا يَسْتَنْفِذُوهُ مِنْهُ. عفوا جزاكم الله خير. نعم لا يستنقذوه منه ضعف الطالب والمطلوب. جزاكم الله خير. And so thus, in relation to the ayah, Allah Ta'ala mentions, O mankind, indeed, a clear example has been given to you. So put forth and listen to it. Indeed, those that call upon other than Allah, they are not able to even create a fly, to the extent if all of them came together in order to do so. And if that fly was to snatch away anything from them, and thus they would not be able to retrieve it. The one that is seeking is weak as well as the one that is being sought. And so Allah Ta'ala, within this ayah, barakallahu feekum, clarifies the reality of those that call upon Allah and call upon other than Allah. Clarifies the reality of the makhluk, the reality of the creation, that they are in need. They are the ones that have a need. And it cannot now be said that in relation to the creation itself, that they can do these things for themselves. That they are the ones that are sufficed. They are the ones that can now say, we can do whatever action needs to be done. As Shaykh Zayd goes on to mention, that even if they came together, every single one of these individuals came together, ijtama'u, upon this action of trying to create a fly, something as small and insignificant as a fly, they will not be able to do so. They will not have the ability to do so. And even, as mentioned, if the fly was to just take something from them, this insignificant fly, this fly which is in reality small, and the human in relation to them, in greater proportion, the fly was to take something from them. It's not ordained, it's not decreed, and they cannot take it back. Or if a harm was to come to them, then they would not be able, they would not have the ability to remove that harm. Allah Ta'ala mentions ضعف الطالب والمطلوب. The ضعف, the weakness of the one, the man that is seeking from that sanam, from that idol. He has weakness. He's in need of Allah. He's calling upon other than Allah, and so he's weak. However, the matlub, the one that he's seeking from as well, other than Allah, is weak as well. This thing that he's seeking from other than Allah, this idol is making dua to, or this individual is making dua to, cannot aid him likewise. For indeed, all of the affairs are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, the talib, the one seeking, he is makhluk, he's created. So he has da'f, he's created, he's in need. Whilst the matlub, the sanam, the idol, the one that's being sought, likewise, is in need. But it's created as well. It's not self-sufficient. Likewise, Shaykh al-Islām Muḥammad Abdul Wahhāb goes on to mention the ayah in relation to the tafsir, an explanation of the Shahādah of la ilaha illallah. Allah Ta'ala mentioned with قال إبراهيم لأبيه وقومه إنني براء مما تعبدون إلا الذي فطرني فإنه سيهدين. And so Ibrāhīm mentions when Ibrāhīm mentioned to his father and his people, indeed I am free from that which you worship, except for the one that has created and originated me. For indeed he is the one that has guided. And so within this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the affair of Ibrāhīm and his da'wah to his father, specifically, and to the qawm, his people, in general. And within this, he mentions, alayhi salam, the negation and the affirmation. he frees himself from anything that is worshipped besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He freed himself from anything that is worshipped besides Allah, whilst affirming that the ibadah, that the worship, is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with no partners. And so there's no doubt, this manner in which Ibrāhīm, the Khalil of Allah, states this to his people and makes this clear and manifest to his people, then no doubt this is also in accordance with the Shahādah, or in accordance with the Shahādah of La ilaha illallah, that the individual responds with calling to the truth, responds by clarifying the affair of the truth. As he mentions, that indeed I am free. I am free of that which you worship. And so Allah Ta'ala informs us of his servant and his Khalil, the Imam al-Hunafa, that he may tabarra, he freed himself from his father and his people in relation to that which they worship from amongst idols. Going back to what we mentioned about Islam, our Shaykh al-Islām, Muḥammad Abdul Hakeem mentioned at the beginning, when he discussed Islam. He mentions Islam was what? What? Islam, is Islam be? لا بالتوحيد نعم والانقياد بالطاعة وبراءة من الشرك وأهله. So affirmation of Tawheed or Ta'ah. So Islam in of itself is affirmation of Tawheed, affirmation of worship of Allah Ta'ala alone, and Ta'ah, obedience to Allah Ta'ala. Along with that is the freeing of oneself from shirk, not only freeing oneself from shirk, but freeing oneself from shirk and its people. Freeing oneself from shirk and its people. And so, Allah Ta'ala mentions thereafter, illallāh fatarani, except for the one that created, originated, I brought me into existence, except for Allah Ta'ala. And so he, alayhi salam, restricts his ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with no partners, and negated the worship of anything other than him, and freed himself from it. And so this is the reality. This is the reality of the individual and the call to Islam. That Islam, no doubt, is upon an affirmation of Tawheed, an affirmation of Ta'ah lillah. But it's not sufficient just to be upon those. Rather, as we mentioned as well, read previously, that the person must free themselves from shirk wa ahlihi. Free themselves from shirk and his people. And thereafter, Shaykh al-Islām, Muḥammad Abdul Hakeem goes into mention the ayah, قُلْ يَا أَهْلُ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالُوا إِلَى كَلَمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ أَلَّا نَعْبُدَ إِلَّا اللَّهَ وَلَا نُشْرِكَ بِهِ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَتَّخِذَ بَعْضُنَا بَعْضًا أَرْبَابًا مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ فَإِنْ تَوَلَّوْا فَقُولُوا اشْهَدُوا بِأَنَّا مُسْلِمُونَ. And so thus, Allah Ta'ala mentions, say, O people of the book, come to a word that we both agree upon, that is the same between us and you, that we worship none other than Allah and do not associate anything in partnership with Him. I will not take one another or take some or one another as lords besides Allah. And thus we bear witness that we are from amongst the Muslims. And so this statement here is an indication of how the Shahādah is made manifest. The person, they free themselves from the worship of anything besides Allah. They free themselves from shirk and they free themselves from the mushrikeen. By way of the statement that we do not associate anything in partnership with Allah. لَا نَعْبُدَ illallāh وَلَا نُشْرِكَ بِهِ شَيْئًا. I do not worship anything besides Allah. لَا نَعْبُدَ illallāh وَلَا نُشْرِكَ بِهِ شَيْئًا. Do not worship anything besides Allah. Do not associate anything in partnership with Him. As this is the khitab. This is an address for the Prophet ﷺ. That Allah Ta'ala has commanded him to direct this khitab, this address to the Ahlul Kitab, the Yahud and the Nasara. They are the Ahlul Kitab. They are the people of the Torah and the Injil. And they claim, this is due to the fact that they claim that they are those that are enacting the Risala, they're enacting the message. And that they are those that are enacting the ibadat. And so thus the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is commanded to address them. If in truth you are truthful in what you say, let's come to this word in which we worship Allah Ta'ala alone and do not associate anything in partnership with Him. The Ahlul Kitab, the Yahud, they will claim that they are enacting the Risala of Musa alayhi salam, enacting the Torah, enacting the Ahkam of the Torah. Whilst the Nasara will claim that they are acting upon the Ahkam, the rulings of the Injil, and what was revealed to Isa alayhi salam. However, the reality is that if they are truly upon the way of these Anbiya wal Mursaleen, upon them is to adhere to Tawheed. Upon them is to adhere to His worship of Allah Ta'ala alone and not associate anything in partnership with Him. Now, and so, this is the ma'na, this is the meaning of the kalima La ilaha illallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs about this particular ayah. Informs us within this ayah the manner in which a person should adhere to the kalimat of Tawheed of La ilaha illallah and the worship of Allah Ta'ala alone without any partners. And thus, these are some of the adillah mentioned, or these are the proofs mentioned by Shaykh al-Islām Muḥammad Abdul Wahhāb in relation to the Shahādah of La ilaha illallah. And here, bi'idhnillah, we'll conclude. And in the next sitting, go on to discuss some of the points in relation to the proof for the Shahādah of Muḥammad Rasulullah. The Shahādah of Muḥammad Rasulullah, as well as the proofs for the other arkan of Islam as well. Allah Ta'ala knows best. Jazakumullah khairan. Wa barakallahu feekum. Sallallahu wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.